Hello class, I'm going to show you how to make roux. Roux is a thickening agent that we're going to use for bechamel, veloutes, espagnols, demi-glace type sauces. So in the pan here, I've got 2 ounces of butter in each pan, and I'm going to make enough roux to thicken about a quart of liquid. So if you can remember that 4 ounces of roux will thicken 1 quart of liquid, that's a great measurement to know. Okay, so for the blonde roux, I'm just going to melt this butter and whisk in flour, and about an equal proportion. For the brown roux, I'm going to brown the butter first, and that'll give me a nice color to the roux that's going to assist with the color on the final sauce. So while this one's beginning to brown, I'm going to go ahead and whisk in a little bit of butter here, or a little bit of flour into the butter. So it's 2 ounces. I want about 2 ounces of flour. And I generally don't measure the flour. I just add it until it looks right. So check it out here. You can see how it's starting to thicken up a little bit. I add a little bit at a time. My heat's pretty high. I'm going to dial that down a little bit. So see how that stirs? It's starting to thicken up a little bit. I want it about the consistency of like an oatmeal, kind of thick, but not so thick that it won't flow and I can't work it in the pan well. If I can't work it in the pan, if it's too thick, it's likely to burn. So we don't want that. So that's going to do it. That's looking good. You can see how it still moves in the pan, pretty thick. And you can see it sizzle there. And I can still kind of flip it like that. Now, what I'm looking for on the roux for when it's cooked is that fluffy look around the edge, where it starts to turn a little bit lighter in color. I'll flip it here in a second. You can see what's on the bottom is going to be different. You've got some yellow mixed in there. You flip it like that and you see that fluffy white look. We'll toss it a little bit. If you want to take your whisk back, you can whisk it a little bit more too. Notice the butter did not brown. And now it's starting to puff and fluff nicely. Whisk it a few more times like this, flip it around, give it a whisk, and once it starts to puff up uniformly, that's when it's done. So you saw how that's puffing now. There's still some convolutions in there. We're going to give it just a few more seconds. Now it's puffing up nice. One last whisk, and maybe one last toss, and that's going to be perfect. Just like that. You see how that puffs up nice? This goes off. That's done. We're going to let this cool a little bit before we add it to our liquid. So I'm going to set that back here to cool. I'm going to move this one over now. And what I'm looking for here is just for a brown roux. The one I just made was a blonde roux. For a brown roux, I want some browning on the butter. So that's going to help give me some color ultimately to the sauce. It's also going to add flavor. Brown butter is kind of a richer flavor. We might not want it in a veloute, which is a white sauce, or a bechamel, which is a milk white sauce, because that color we don't want. But in a brown sauce, a brown roux is appropriate. So you can see the milk solids are not browning yet. I've got to let this get a little bit hotter. Turn that heat up just a touch. And we want to make sure we let roux cool before we add it to a liquid. It doesn't have to be ice cold, but if it's hot and causes the liquid to boil when it goes in, that's not so good. Ultimately, we do want the liquid to boil, but not when we're adding the roux. The roux has to be fully incorporated. I'll talk more about that. All right, you can see we're starting to get a little bit of color here. Just starting to. I want to get a little bit more. And we're going to essentially proceed the same way. We're going to add the flour to the brown butter. You can see now it's starting to brown up nicely. We're definitely getting some color there. So here we go. Flour's going in. Again, about 2 ounces. You don't need to measure. Just add until it is thickened. And this cooks really fast because the roux, or because the butter is a little hotter. I mean, it's browned. It's at a much higher temperature. So you can see the brown color to the roux. I'll hold them side by side in a minute. I'm going to let this cook down pretty much the same way as the last one. can see I added just a touch too much flour here, so it's a little harder to keep this moving. This is probably more technically 1-to-1 ratio. A 1-to-1 ratio is a little bit stiffer and a little bit more difficult to work in the pan like I did the last one. So you can see it's a little chunkier, but it'll be fine. So we're going to keep with the whisk here, just to keep it moving, not let it burn. I'm going to turn that heat down a bit. We're about done. Just let it settle and then see how it puffs. The smell on this is really nice. It's like nice brown butter bread with the flour getting toasty like that. And that is done. So this is off too. Now look at the difference in the color on these. The blonde roux and the brown roux. All right, we're gonna let those cool, and I'm gonna show you how to use them in a bechamel and a mornay. A bechamel which will turn into a mornay, and then this one in an espagnole. All right, bye for now.